The sound of steel doors echoed down a long, gray corridor. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of disinfectant, sweat, and silence. Inside this forgotten world, time didn't move. It dragged. In one dimly lit cell, a man sat hunched in the corner. His name was Marcus Lee, once a construction worker, now an inmate, another number in a place where hope had no voice. His hands shook as he clutched a worn photo of his daughter. The ink was faded, the corners torn. Every night he whispered to it, "Daddy's sorry." The guards passed by without a glance. In here, tears didn't matter. Weakness was ignored or worse, punished. Narrator. For 3 days straight, Marcus hadn't eaten properly. He'd been beaten by another inmate after asking for help, and his request for medical care went unanswered. No one came. No one even asked if he was okay. In the cafeteria, his cries had become background noise. Some inmates covered their ears, others laughed. "He won't last," one of them muttered. The guards turned away. Another one losing his mind, a senior officer said. It was a cruel pattern, one man suffering, 100 others pretending not to see. Narrator. But the universe has a strange way of aligning moments, one person's pain meeting another's purpose. That same morning, a black SUV pulled up outside the prison gates. Cameras flashed. News vans lined the road. The prison staff straightened their uniforms, nerves visible in every movement. A visit had been scheduled for weeks, part of a national justice reform initiative. A delegation of government officials had come to review conditions and discuss potential policy improvements. It was supposed to be just another photo op, another report no one would read. But among the crowd stepping through those gates was Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Narrator. Slightly brighter tone. Unlike the others, she wasn't wearing a stiff suit or hiding behind security. She had a notepad, a calm expression, and a quiet fire in her eyes. The warden, eager to impress, hurried to greet her. Warden forced smile. "Welcome, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. We're honored. I assure you, our facility runs efficiently and humanely." Ayok politely. "I'm here to see, not to be assured." Her voice was firm but warm. Cameras followed her as she entered the prison block. The other officials whispered to each other they'd heard stories about her empathy, her curiosity, her refusal to play politics when real people were suffering. Narrator. Inside, inmates lined the walls, some curious, others indifferent. Ayok walked slowly, her eyes scanning every face, every crack in the wall, every bruise that spoke of a story untold. Then she heard it, faint, almost drowned by the clang of metal, a soft sobbing sound. She stopped. Ayok. "Wait, what's that noise?" The warden hesitated. "Probably nothing, ma'am. This block's been quiet." But she didn't move. Her instincts wouldn't let her. The sound came again, raw, painful, human. She turned the corner, and there, through the narrow bars of cell 19, she saw him, Marcus, head down, body trembling, tears dripping onto the concrete. A forgotten man in a forgotten cell. Ayok quietly. "Why is he crying?" Guard. "Just an attention seeker, ma'am. He does this for sympathy. He's been disciplined before." Ayok sternly. "Disciplined? For crying?" Her tone froze the corridor. Even the guards looked uneasy. Narrator. The warden cleared his throat. "It's complicated, Congresswoman. He's difficult. Keeps saying he's innocent, that he's been mistreated. We've tried helping him." But Ayok interrupting. "But you stopped listening." Silence. She stepped closer to the cell door. The inmate lifted his head slowly, eyes red, face swollen. For a split second, their eyes met, compassion meeting hopelessness. Marcus blinked, unsure if what he was seeing was real. No one had looked at him like that in months, not with authority, not with pity, but with genuine concern. Marcus weakly. Are you really here?" Ayok. "I am. What's your name?" Marcus. Marcus. Ayok. "Marcus. I'm Alexandria. I came to see how people here are treated, and right now, you're showing me everything I need to know." The warden shifted nervously. "Congresswoman, perhaps we should move along. There's a schedule, Ayok. Schedules can wait. Humanity can't." Narrator. The air changed. Even the other inmates sensed it. This wasn't a staged visit anymore. Something real was happening. The cameras stayed quiet. Reporters stared. The woman known for her fiery speeches was now standing still, in front of one broken man, refusing to move on. Narrator softly. In that moment, the power dynamic of the entire room shifted. The inmate wasn't invisible anymore. The guards weren't untouchable anymore, and compassion had just entered the building. No one had ever stopped for Marcus Lee before. But when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez walked in, everything began to change. Narrator calm but serious tone. The steel door behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez clanged shut as she entered the lower prison corridor. The noise echoed like thunder, a sound that carried years of pain and punishment. The warden walked quickly beside her, his polished shoes clicking on the concrete floor. "Congresswoman," he began, "this facility houses over 2,000 inmates. It's one of the most secure in the state. We take great pride in maintaining order here." "Ayok, order is good," she replied, her eyes scanning the cold hallway. "But order without compassion is just control." The warden hesitated. No politician had ever spoken to him like that before. Narrator. They continued walking. Guards stood at every gate. Some straightened their backs when they saw her. Others whispered quietly. Most of them had seen Ayok on TV, fiery and fearless in debates. But seeing her here, in this grim place, felt different. She wasn't performing for cameras. She was watching, truly watching. They passed cell after cell, faces behind bars, silent eyes following her, some hopeful, some angry, some long since dead inside. And then she stopped again, right in front of Marcus's cell. "Ayok," quietly. "This is him." The guards looked uneasy. One of them muttered, "We really should keep moving, ma'am," but she didn't. Marcus sat on the edge of his small cot now, shoulders hunched forward, his photo still clutched in one hand. "Ayok." "Marcus. When did you last eat?" Marcus weakly. "Yesterday morning, I think." "Ayok. And when did someone last check on you?" Marcus. "Nobody checks. They only shout." She turned to the guard. "Is that true?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, inmates often exaggerate. He's had disciplinary issues." "Ayok. What kind?" Guard. Refusing to follow orders. Talking back. "Being emotional." "Ayok. Being emotional?" She repeated slowly. "That's not a crime." The guard looked away. Ayok glanced around the cracked paint, the faint smell of mold, the leaking pipe in the corner. Everything about that cell screamed neglect. It wasn't just Marcus who was suffering. It was the whole system. The warden cleared his throat, nervous. "Congresswoman, we have a schedule to maintain. The cafeteria, the recreation yard." She held up a hand. "I'll see those. But I'll see this first." Her tone left no room for argument. Ayok knelt down slightly, meeting Marcus's eyes through the bars. "Ayok, you don't have to be afraid right now. Tell me what happened." He hesitated. The words caught in his throat. Finally, his voice came out trembling, broken, but honest. "Marcus, I asked for help. I told them I was sick. They told me to stop pretending. Then another inmate took my food, said I didn't deserve to eat. I just stopped talking." Narrator. Ayok's expression softened. She knew that look, the quiet collapse of someone who'd been ignored too long. She stood up and faced the warden. "Ayok, does this sound like discipline to you, or neglect?" The warden shifted. "Ma'am, our staff follows procedure." "Ayok, procedure isn't compassion. It's paperwork." The words hit like a hammer. Even the camera crew fell silent. Narrator. Ayok stepped back from the cell. She took a deep breath, then turned to her assistant. "Note his name," she said. "Marcus Lee. I want his case file reviewed immediately." The assistant nodded, quickly scribbling in a notepad. Narrator. They continued walking down the corridor. The warden tried to regain control. "Congresswoman," he said carefully, "you must understand we can't run a place like this with emotions. It's about discipline. Rules." Ayok calmly. "Rules without heart create monsters in uniform." The guard behind her blinked, unsure if she meant him. Narrator. She stopped again near the common area. Several inmates were lined up for lunch, trays of gray food. No talking allowed. Ayok's eyes lingered on a guard who barked at one man for walking too slowly. She didn't look away. Ayok firmly. "Does treating people like animals make them better humans when they leave here?" No one answered. A reporter following her whispered to his cameraman. "She's not just inspecting. She's confronting the entire system." Narrator. Ayok turned back to the warden. "How many rehabilitation programs do you actually run here?" Warden. "A few, Congresswoman. Budget cuts have limited resources." Ayok. "And how much do you spend per year on punishment compared to education?" The warden swallowed hard. He didn't know. Narrator. They reached the end of the block. Behind them, the sound of chains echoed, someone being moved somewhere else. The harshness of the world inside these walls was unrelenting. Ayok paused again. "This building," she said softly, "feels like a place where empathy came to die." Even the guards didn't have a comeback. Narrator. But in the midst of that silence, she made a decision. She turned to her assistant again. I want to come back here unannounced. No cameras, just me. Her assistant nodded quickly, eyes wide. The warden looked alarmed. Congresswoman, that might not be appropriate, Ayok. It's necessary. Because I don't want to see what you choose to show me. I want to see what you hide. The guard looked at Marcus's cell one last time. He noticed Marcus staring through the bars, hope flickering faintly in his eyes for the first time in months. Narrator, gentle tone. She smiled at him before leaving. Stay strong, Marcus. I'll be back. Marcus nodded slowly. Thank you, ma'am. Narrator. When she turned to walk away, something remarkable happened. The hallway that had been silent, lifeless, began to stir. Inmates whispered quietly from their cells. A few clapped softly. For the first time in a long time, the walls felt lighter. As Ayok exited the block, her aide whispered, You changed something in there. Ayok sighed. No, she said softly. I just noticed something no one else would. Narrator, reflective tone. Outside, the sunlight hit her face. The cameras rushed forward, microphones flashing. Congresswoman, how was the visit? Do you think prisons are being mistreated? What's your next step? She looked into the cameras and said, We can't fix a justice system until we start seeing the people inside it as human beings, not numbers, not problems. People. Narrator. That clip aired on every major network that night. But what the world didn't see, what the cameras missed, was the quiet transformation happening inside cell 19. Marcus sat on his cot, eyes still wet. For the first time, his tears weren't from despair. They were from something he hadn't felt in years, hope. If you were in that hallway and saw someone suffering like Marcus, would you stop or keep walking like the others? Comment below and tell me where you're watching this story from. That night, long after the reporters had packed up their cameras and the SUV motorcade had left the prison gates, Marcus Lee lay awake on his thin cot. The cell was silent, but his mind wasn't. He kept replaying the moment over and over, the voice of the woman who had stopped for him, listened to him, seen him. Stay strong, Marcus. I'll be back. He mouthed the words to himself, as if holding on to them might keep them from fading. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. Narrator. But the system around him hadn't changed, not yet. The same guards patrolled the same hallways with the same cold faces. The same men barked orders. The same indifference filled the air. Only one thing was different now: someone had noticed. And that single act of noticing had begun to ripple. The next morning, in a small conference room inside the facility, the warden sat nervously across from his staff. He looked tired, his tie loosened, his pride a little cracked. Warden. All right, everyone, let's keep this simple. The Congresswoman's visit went fine, but will be under scrutiny for a few weeks. Follow the rules. No incidents. One of the guards, Officer Briggs, crossed his arms. With all due respect, sir, she made us look weak yesterday, talking to that inmate like he's some kind of victim. The warden sighed. We don't need opinions, Briggs. We need professionalism. But Briggs wasn't listening. He slammed his fist on the table. These people are criminals. They don't need sympathy, they need order. If we start letting politicians feel sorry for them, we'll lose control. Narrator. The room fell silent. No one dared agree, but no one disagreed either. Because deep down, everyone knew Ayok's visit had shaken something. The image of her kneeling beside an inmate had spread across the prison like wildfire. The guards could feel the shift. The inmates could too. Power didn't feel so absolute anymore. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, in Washington, D.C., Ayok sat in her office reviewing a pile of papers. Her assistant, Camila, placed a file in front of her. Camila, this is Marcus Lee's record, ma'am. I pulled everything we could find. Ayok, thank you. Narrator. She opened the folder. Inside were years of forms, signatures, reports, the cold, bureaucratic language of neglect. Repeated disciplinary actions, uncooperative behavior, emotional instability. Every label, every line, every note told the same story: a man dehumanized by paperwork. Then she flipped to the last page. It was a short psychological report. One sentence stood out. Subject exhibits signs of grief and trauma after losing parental rights to his daughter. Ayoksen paused. She looked up. Ayok softly. He wasn't acting out. He was mourning. She leaned back, thoughtful. Camila, schedule a follow-up visit. Quietly. No press. Camila, are you sure? The media's already running with the story. Ayok, then let them. But I'm not going back for cameras. I'm going back for Marcus. Narrator. Narrator. 3 days later, before dawn, a single black sedan pulled up to the same prison. No news vans, no microphones, just one woman with purpose in her eyes. The guards looked confused as she entered without warning. The warden rushed to meet her. Congresswoman, you should have called ahead. Ayok, I wanted to see how things really are. Her voice was calm but carried authority, the kind that doesn't shout but can't be ignored. She walked straight towards cell 19. Marcus was sitting quietly when the sound of footsteps echoed again. He didn't look up at first. He thought it was just another head count. Then he heard her voice. Ayok. Good morning, Marcus. He froze. Slowly, he lifted his head and there she was. No camera crew, no crowd, just her. Marcus. You came back, Ayok. I said I would. Narrator soft tone. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt different this time, not empty, but full of unspoken understanding. Ayok, I read your file. I know about your daughter. Marcus's eyes glistened. You do? Ayok, yes. And I know you didn't deserve to be forgotten. Narrator, he nodded slowly, the lump in his throat too heavy for words. Ayok turned to the guard. Unlock the door. I'm talking to him inside. The guard hesitated. Ma'am, that's against protocol. Ayok, then rewrite the protocol. Her tone was calm, but it carried enough power to make the key turn. The door creaked open. For the first time in years, Marcus saw the world from outside the bars, even if just for a moment. Narrator. Ayok sat across from him on the cold floor. No desk, no distance. Just two people, one with authority, one with none, meeting as equals. Ayok, tell me what you need most right now. Marcus looked down, thinking. Then he whispered, to feel human again. She nodded slowly. That's where we start. Hours passed. She asked questions that no one had ever cared to ask. What would help inmates feel safer? What happens when someone gets sick? What does hope look like in a place like this? Marcus answered carefully, afraid to believe this conversation was real. But she kept listening, writing notes, asking follow-ups, treating every word like it mattered. Narrator. Outside the cell, guards exchanged nervous glances. Some rolled their eyes, but others, the younger ones, looked thoughtful. Because deep down, they'd never seen someone in power kneel beside a prisoner without judgment. Finally, Ayok stood up. Ayok, I can't fix everything overnight, Marcus. But I can promise you this, your story will matter. He looked up. You really think people care about stories like mine? Ayok, they will. When someone's willing to tell them. Narrator emotional tone. As she turned to leave, Marcus's voice cracked. Congresswoman, she looked back. He swallowed hard. Thank you for treating me like a man. She smiled softly. That's all any of us ever need. When Ayok walked out that day, something extraordinary happened. The same guard who had mocked Marcus before, Officer Briggs, stood silently as she passed. For the first time, he lowered his head. Narrator. The system hadn't changed yet. The walls were still gray. The routines still harsh, but the people inside them weren't the same, and word spread from one cell to another. Whispers of what had happened filled the air. Did you hear? The congresswoman sat with him. She actually listened. She opened his door. It became legend before the night was over. Have you ever seen someone in power use their voice to lift someone who couldn't speak for themselves? Comment justice below and tell me what country you're watching from. Change never happens quietly, especially in a place built on silence. Word of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's unannounced visit spread through the prison like wildfire. From the kitchens to the infirmary, from the janitors to the guards, everyone had heard the same unbelievable story. She went inside his cell. She sat with him on the floor. No cameras, no press, just her. By the next morning, the rumor had become legend. Some inmates started to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone on the outside still cared. Others didn't dare hope. Politicians talk, one of them said bitterly. Then they forget. But Marcus Lee didn't forget. He woke up that morning with something new burning in his chest, resolve. For the first time, he wanted to stand again, not just survive. Live. Narrator. In the staff lounge, tension was thick. Officer Briggs paced back and forth, frustration carved into every line on his face. Briggs. You see what she's doing? Undermining our authority, making us look like monsters. Another guard shrugged. She didn't lie, Briggs. You've seen what happens here. Briggs, that's the point. This place works because we keep order. She brings her politics in here, and next thing you know, inmates think they run the show. The warden sat quietly, staring into his coffee. He didn't say it out loud, but a part of him agreed, not with Briggs, but with her. Something was broken here, and pretending otherwise wouldn't fix it. Still, the prison wasn't a place that welcomed change easily, and that resistance was about to show itself. Later that day, Marcus was escorted to the infirmary for a checkup, his first in months. It wasn't coincidence, it was her doing. The medical staff looked surprised to see his name on the list. One of them whispered, "Congresswoman's orders." Narrator. As Marcus sat on the table, a nurse carefully examined his bruised ribs and wrist. "Does this hurt?" she asked. He nodded slightly. Her voice softened. "You'll be okay. Someone's finally watching now." That single line, "someone's watching now," echoed in his head. Because when people start watching, the truth starts surfacing. Narrator. That evening, outside the prison walls, the story broke online. A journalist who'd been on the original tour released a short video clip just 10 seconds long showing Ayok kneeling beside Marcus's cell. In the clip, you could hear her voice faintly. "Schedules can wait. Humanity can't." The video exploded across social media. Within hours, millions of people had seen it. Comments flooded in from around the world. "This is leadership. Finally, someone in power sees the forgotten." Respect from Manila, from Johannesburg, from London, the world's watching. Hashtags like #compassion over control and #justice Hazen aim began trending globally. Meanwhile, in Washington, political phones started ringing nonstop. Some praised her courage. Others called her reckless. On a late-night news broadcast, one commentator sneered, "Politicians shouldn't be interfering in correctional systems. She's pandering to criminals." But on another network, a civil rights advocate countered, "No, she's reminding us that empathy isn't interference, it's humanity." The nation was divided. But one thing was certain, people were talking. Back inside the prison, things were shifting too. Guards who used to mock inmates now kept their tone lower. Some even started checking on men they'd ignored before. A quiet ripple of awareness had begun, not fear, not control, but accountability. Still, not everyone welcomed it. Narrator. Lower tone. One night, Officer Briggs cornered Marcus during roll call. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with resentment. "Briggs, so, you're the star now, huh? Congresswoman's little project." Marcus didn't reply. "Briggs, you think she's gonna save you? She'll forget you next week." "They all do." Marcus looked up slowly, meeting his glare. Marcus calmly, "Maybe. But for once, somebody saw me. That's more than you ever did." The room went silent. Briggs clenched his fists but walked away. Narrator. For the first time, Marcus hadn't flinched. He had found a voice again, and it scared those who'd spent years trying to take it from him. Narrator. Shift to hopeful tone. That weekend, Ayok returned to Washington and held a quiet meeting with members of the Justice Reform Committee. She brought files, photos, and testimonies, including Marcus's. She spoke not with anger, but conviction. "Ayok, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for oversight. These are American citizens. Some made mistakes. Others were failed by the system. But none of them deserve to be forgotten." A senior senator scoffed. "We can't babysit every inmate." Congresswoman Ayok. "We're not babysitting. We're rebuilding humanity where the system erased it." Silence. No one could argue with that. Her speech was recorded and shared by reporters. It reached classrooms, social media feeds, even correctional officers' lounges. Back in cell 19, Marcus received a small envelope through the mail slot. It was handwritten. Inside was a short note. "Marcus, I told you your story would matter. Keep your head high." He read it a dozen times, his hands trembling. Then, for the first time since his arrest, he smiled, not from happiness, but from something deeper, recognition. Narrator. The next morning, other inmates noticed the change in him. When a new arrival, a young man named Theo, broke down crying on his first night, Marcus walked over and sat beside him. Theo sniffled. "No one cares here." Marcus smiled faintly. "Someone will. You just have to stay human long enough to be seen." Narrator. Soft music tone. And so, the ripple grew again. One act of compassion had turned into another. A single open door had become a light in the darkness. Meanwhile, the warden sat in his office late that night, watching the viral clip for the 10th time. Her words echoed in his head. "Schedules can wait. Humanity can't." He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes, and whispered, "She's right." For the first time in years, he drafted a new internal memo, effective immediately. Staff are instructed to report any signs of distress among inmates. Failure to act will be treated as misconduct. It wasn't reform yet, but it was a start. Outside, the world kept talking, debating, arguing, sharing. But inside that gray, forgotten prison, something extraordinary had begun, something not even politics could undo. Compassion had entered the walls and refused to leave. Would you stand up against a system that's wrong, even if everyone else stayed silent? Type courage in the comments and tell me which city or country you're watching from. When the light of truth enters a dark place, the darkness doesn't fade quietly, it fights back. In the days after the viral video, the world outside the prison was buzzing, journalists debating, citizens posting, politicians reacting. But inside those walls, something colder was stirring. Some guards whispered that Ayok's visit had softened discipline. Others were angry that an inmate's story had become national news. And at the center of that growing resentment was one man, Officer Briggs. Narrator: Briggs had always believed that strength came from control, rules, fear, obedience. That's what kept order, he told himself. But ever since Ayok stepped into cell 19, his control had been slipping, not just over the inmates, but over himself. He'd lost respect. The other officers saw it, the inmates saw it, and worst of all, Marcus saw it. Every time Briggs passed that cell, he could feel Marcus's calm gaze on him, not defiant, just unafraid. It burned deeper than hatred ever could. That morning, Marcus was cleaning the hallway with a mop and bucket when Briggs approached. The sound of boots echoed sharply against the concrete. Briggs, Lee, you think you're some kind of hero now? Marcus didn't answer. Briggs, you know, she's gone. Moved on to her next cause. You're just another headline. Marcus looked up quietly. Maybe, but at least now the world knows we exist. Narrator: something inside Briggs snapped. He grabbed Marcus by the collar, pushing him against the wall. Briggs angrily: you listen to me. People like her don't change anything. This place is mine. You breathe because I let you. Marcus stared at him steadily. You're wrong. I breathe because I'm still human. Briggs's hand tightened, then he let go, stepping back as other guards turned the corner. He forced a smile. Get back to work. But inside, his fury was boiling. Narrator shift to DC. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Ayok was facing her own storm. Her office was flooded with emails, some filled with praise, others with anger. News pundits accused her of glorifying criminals. One headline screamed, "Congresswoman crosses the line, puts feelings over law." She sat silently as her staff read the articles aloud. Her aide Camila looked up nervously. Should we respond? Ma'am Ayok. No, let them talk. I didn't go there to be liked. I went there to be heard. Narrator. But the backlash grew louder. In private meetings, senior officials warned her to back off. They told her it wasn't politically wise to keep talking about inmates and prisons. One congressman smirked across the table. Congressman, with all due respect, Alexandria, voters don't want compassion for criminals. They want safety. Ayok firmly. Safety without justice is just control. And control without compassion is abuse. The room went silent. Narrator. Back in the prison, Marcus sat quietly in his cell, replaying her words from the note she'd sent him. Your story will matter. He didn't know that her story was being tested too in real time. That night, Briggs walked past the cell again, slower this time. His expression unreadable. Briggs, you've made things complicated, Lee. Marcus said nothing. Briggs, you think she's your savior? You think this place is gonna change because of one woman? Marcus met his eyes. Marcus. No, but it's already started. Briggs laughed darkly. We'll see about that. He walked off, but something about Marcus's calm unsettled him. Narrator. 2 days later, Ayok's office received a confidential email. It was unsigned, just a few lines. Congresswoman, you should know the inmate you spoke to, Marcus Lee, is being targeted. Officer Briggs has been harassing him since your visit. Please help. Camila looked up from the screen, pale. Ma'am, what do we do? Ayok stood immediately. We go back. Camila blinked. Already? The press, Ayok. Forget the press. He doesn't need cameras. He needs protection. Narrator. The next day, the black sedan returned to the prison gates. No media, no warnings, just her. The warden rushed to greet her, anxious. Congresswoman. Again? Ayok? Something's happening inside your walls. I'm here to see it. He hesitated, then nodded. This way. They walked down the corridor, the same corridor where Marcus had cried weeks earlier. Only this time, Ayok's steps were faster. When she reached cell 19, she stopped cold. The door was half open. Inside, Marcus sat on the floor, his knuckles bruised, a small cut above his brow. Ayok's sharp tone. What happened here? The guard on duty shifted nervously. Minor altercation, ma'am. He slipped. Her eyes narrowed. He slipped? Narrator. The warden's face hardened. Who was on duty during this incident? The guard hesitated. Officer Briggs, sir. Ayok turned, her voice calm but cutting. Get him. A few minutes later, Briggs entered, arms folded, face blank. Ayok, you were responsible for this inmate's safety. Briggs, he provoked me. Disrespected an officer. Ayok, so you hit him? Briggs, he needs to learn his place. The room went silent. Even the warden stared in disbelief. Ayok quietly. And what is his place, officer? Briggs hesitated. She stepped closer. Ayok, because from where I'm standing, his place is right here, protected by the same constitution that protects you. Briggs opened his mouth but no words came out. The warden spoke finally, voice trembling. Officer Briggs, hand over your badge. You're suspended pending investigation. Briggs froze. Sir Warden, now, slowly. Briggs placed his badge on the desk. His jaw tightened. He looked at Marcus, then at Ayok. Hatred flickered in his eyes but fear too. He turned and walked out, the sound of his boots echoing like thunder fading down the hall. Narrator. When he was gone, Ayok knelt beside Marcus again. Ayok, are you okay? Marcus nodded weakly. He was angry. I didn't fight back. Ayok, you shouldn't have to. Her voice cracked slightly. For the first time, she looked tired, not from politics, but from the weight of humanity she carried. Marcus quietly, you came back again. Ayok, of course I did. Narrator. She looked around the cell, the same cracked walls, the same dim light, but it didn't feel hopeless anymore. It felt alive, because standing there, she realized something profound. It wasn't her compassion that changed Marcus, it was his courage that was changing her. Later that night, as she left the facility, the warden stopped her. Warden. Congresswoman, I wanted to say thank you. You've made us see things differently. She smiled faintly. Don't thank me, just keep seeing. Narrator hopeful, emotional close. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, cleansing. Ayok looked up at the sky, letting it wash over her face. Somewhere behind those walls, Marcus sat awake again, watching raindrops slide down the bars of his window. For the first time in years, he didn't feel trapped. He felt alive, because someone had stood up and refused to sit down. Would you have the courage to stand for what's right even when everyone else against you? Type stand in the comments and tell me what country you're watching from. Sometimes, the truth doesn't explode. It unfolds one heart at a time. After the confrontation with Officer Briggs, Ayok's quiet visit didn't stay quiet for long. Someone inside the prison, a guard who had secretly filmed the exchange, leaked the video. The clip begins simply, Ayok standing firm, her voice steady, Briggs, red-faced, muttering about knowing your place, and Marcus silent, battered, but calm. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire across every platform. Hashtags filled timelines. Hashtag stand with Marcus. Hashtag justice inside. Hashtag AOC for humanity. Millions watched and the world reacted. Narrator. News anchors replayed the footage, dissecting every second. Some called it a defining moment for justice reform. Others, predictably, called it political theater. But one thing was undeniable: the raw truth on Marcus's face broke something open in people. In comment sections, former inmates shared their own stories, mothers of prisoners wrote tearful messages of support, and ordinary citizens from Manila to Mexico City, London to Lahore wrote the same 4 words again and again. He didn't deserve that. Cut to Ayok's congressional office. 2 days later, phones rang non-stop, reporters crowded the lobby, her staff struggled to keep up. Camila, her aide, held up a tablet. Ma'am, you've got 20 million views in less than 48 hours. Ayok didn't look impressed. Good, now we use it. Camila, use it. How? Ayok, we push the bill. Narrator, that bill quietly drafted months ago was called the Dignity Act. It aimed to reform treatment standards for inmates, enforce accountability for abuse, and fund rehabilitation programs. It had been gathering dust in committee. Until now. Ayok, they can ignore me, but they can't ignore this. She pointed to Marcus's photo on the screen, a still from the video. Narrator cut back to the prison. Inside, Marcus didn't know any of this yet. He'd been placed in the infirmary after the altercation, not for punishment, but for protection. For the first time, he was treated gently. A nurse spoke to him kindly. Even the guards avoided harsh tones. Marcus to himself, she did it. Again, he thought of Ayok's words, your story will matter. He hadn't understood them then. Now, he was living proof. Narrator. But not everyone was celebrating. In a small, dim office, Briggs sat alone, suspended, stripped of authority, stewing in silence. He replayed the moment Ayok confronted him over and over.